Okay, in this lesson, we are going to be looking eventually at challenge number 4. So challenge number 4 has a little bit to do with creating kind of the Flappy Bird idea. So before we do that, again, a reminder for you, please read the actual assignments and go through the tutorials and practice with the backgrounds and read this stuff. Also, as you're working through the challenge, please try some stuff yourself. I mean, these tutorial lessons here are more kind of guiding you towards the answer, which doesn't necessarily help you. And also pause the lesson frequently if you're like, oh, I kind of get that. I'd like to try something like this. Otherwise, you're kind of not learning anything, okay? So that's kind of where we're going with this. So with Flappy Bird, where we're going to start is creating the background, creating Flappy Bird, and doing all that sort of stuff before we get into the programming. So this lesson might be a little bit longer. So first of all, when you're creating backgrounds or the sprites themselves, what you need to be aware of is you can do that over here. So if you want to create your own sprite, you can hover over the cat here, and there is a paint button, and then you can create your own sprite. What I've been working on is a background. So I went to the backgrounds and went to paint. And I'm currently starting to work on my Flappy Bird background. So one thing you can do, or just ensure, is that you are definitely in vector mode. So you want to make sure that you don't click on it if it says convert to bitmap. You want to stay in vector mode. You don't really need to know what that mode's all about, but the nice thing about vector mode is that everything is its own object. So you can see when I'm clicking on them with my select tool is they're their own objects. That allows you to edit them really nicely. So for example, if you right click on something, actually it's somewhere else here. It's right here. So if you go forward, you click on an item, you can actually bring it forward layers. So if I wanted the hill in the front, I could do that because it's its own object. Okay, I'm gonna actually send it backwards here. Okay, now the tools for creating any backgrounds or any characters are these here. And what I would suggest doing is just play. So what I did is I created for my background, I created a rectangle, and then I decided to start playing. So I actually went to this guy here, which is your Reshape tool, and you can just kind of click on anything or create new nodes and play around with that if you'd like to. You don't have to at all. Okay, but that's kind of the idea. I believe with my clouds, I just made a whole bunch of circles and duplicated them and just layered them on top of each other. So you can kind of see that these are all clouds here. For my tubes, I think I just have 3 rectangles. And again, you can do a variety of things if you'd like to. I'm just going to make the top 2 tubes here and just show you some shortcuts. And one critical thing that you're going to want to ensure is that these tubes are all identical colors. You'll find out why later on. And don't take an image off of Google for your background. Create your own background. First of all, it helps you understand the program and the design elements. Second of all, it's going to be way easier later on when we're actually getting into the programming because the colors are going to be very important as we're programming this, okay? So if you want to duplicate something, I'm just going to duplicate this tube. And if I hold down Shift, I can click on all 3 items that make up the tube and just press Control C and Control V to copy and paste. So there's another tube. And it looks like here I can also flip vertical. So that's upside down instantly. You can do this a slower way if you like, and that's totally fine. I'm just going to do this a little bit of a faster way. And there we go. And maybe I'll copy him again and put a tube up here. Okay. I may also want to move these further apart because this looks like it's kind of a difficult amount of spacing. So I'll move this over here and this guy over here. Okay, let's get into creating your sprite. So again, this could probably take you half an hour just to create the background. You're going to struggle probably with it a little bit. So just play around. Control Z is undo and look at all the tools and make sure you are in vector mode. So do not click on convert to bitmap. So here's my basic background. For those of you who want to get into more realistic Flappy Bird, you might know in the actual Flappy Bird that the pipes move and the Flappy Bird actually stays still. You don't have to do that at all. It makes it way more difficult. But students who try to accomplish that actually make these pipes their own sprites and make the sprites move. So it looks like the sprites are actually moving from right to left. But we're just going to have a stagnant, still back image, okay? Now there's a whole bunch of challenges, and you're more than welcome to, if you want to make this more like the Flappy Bird, challenge yourself to do it and just have some fun with it for those of you who are enjoying this, okay? So there we go. There's my background. I'm going to go into my sprite. So I'm going to create a new sprite here. I think I'll delete this guy. And I'll go into sprite and paint. Okay. Again, you want to be in vector mode, so don't click on convert to bitmap. And I'm going to start creating the 2 sprites of my Flappy Bird. So what I'm going to do is just create the first one. The second one is just has a shorter wing. So as we change these costumes, you'll see it looks like he's flying. So we are going to, first of all, just create a circle for his body. And one thing that I say that's critically important, I'm just going to make this, for now, the fill I'm going to turn off, and I'll make the outline black for now. So there we go. But the critical thing is that it is centered on the origin. So you can see right here, if I hit the plus, that's the origin. If you don't center your sprites on the origin, when they go to turn, they're gonna move in really unfamiliar ways, and it'll get really, really difficult, particularly if you get into the next challenge, which is the Pac-Man. If you don't place Pac-Man right in front of the origin, you are going to be in trouble. So I'm gonna pull up my select tool, and I'm gonna go to the origin, and it snaps right onto the origin. So he's perfectly centered. If your Flappy Bird's too big, the two things you can do about it is actually change the size on your screen here. So that's one way. The other way is you can actually change, I believe, you can change the size here. So if I change this to like a 75 size, he'll get smaller. So it's up to you how you decide to change his size. So there's the main body of my Flappy Bird. I think I'm gonna reduce his size even a little bit more, just so he can fit through the pipes. There we go. I'm going to give him, so this is going to be yellow. Maybe I'll give this a yellow fill. That looks pretty yellow there. And I'll make his wing. And again, because you're not familiar with this program and you're watching a video, this could take you a while. And again, pause the video and just try it yourself. Play around, mess around, have some fun with it. So there's a wing. Maybe I'll make his beak up here a little bit smaller. And if you want to make it more realistic, have fun with it. Some of you are kind of artists and you want to create your own sprite and make it look cool. Make sure it's a Flappy Bird still, but have some fun with it if you like. That's totally fine. So there we go. You also notice in his beak here, he's got a little line. So maybe I'll give him that line there. I think there's a line tool here. So you can just drag, I believe, a line. So there he is. And finally, I'll do his eye here. So there is Mr. Flappy Bird. I'll give him an eyeball as well. Oops. All right, so there we go. Okay, so what you want to, another thing that you'll want to understand is that I wouldn't recreate all of this. You can actually duplicate it. So if you look at the second image of the Flappy Bird, it's exactly the same other than the wing shape. So what I would do is in Scratch, if you go up to the top left here, you see the costume. If you right click and duplicate, the nice thing is that his second costume, again, you're not creating a new sprite, you have two different costumes on the same sprite, is you can just click on only his wing and make it shorter. Okay, and there we go. So I'm done the beginning phases. So the big idea here, so I've got the sprite, I've got the background. The big idea is you want to make it so the following can happen. You want to change the sprite's costume every 0.1 seconds. You want to make it so the Flappy Bird moves forward forever. You want to make it so if he touches one of the pipes, he goes back to the start. You want to make it so the user can make the sprite go up or down pressing the arrow keys. You can also make an ending screen. If you look at all the challenges, you can make it more realistic by making the pipe sprite. So all sorts of things you can do here. And I know this lesson's getting a little bit longer and there's quite a bit more we still need to do. So you can pause and challenge yourself to do this stuff throughout. But here we go. So first thing I want to do is show you how to change his costume every 0.1 seconds. And hopefully what you're understanding, I'm just going to kind of give you ideas before you can pause the video, is you probably are going to want to do something in a forever loop, right? So you're going to want a forever because he's forever going to be changing his costume. Another thing that maybe you aren't aware of, but you can search for, is in the looks, there's something here called next costume. You also might want to be aware that there's something here in events where there's a wait. Actually, it's in the controls here. You can wait 0.1 seconds. Okay. And you can also, you need some sort of event to start it. And you might want this. So see if you can piece these together. This is one of many ways to do it. And pause the video right now and try it yourself. See if you can make it so that the Flappy Bird changes costumes. All right, so here's my script. And you can see if I click on the flag, it looks like he's flying. Okay, maybe in the video on YouTube it doesn't quite look like that because depending on the frames per second here, but on my screen it looks like he's flying. Okay. Another cool thing that you'll need to know for the future, so I'm just going to undo this for now, or to stop it for the future, is having to do with coordinates. Because your Flappy Bird needs to start at the beginning if he hits one of the pipes, what you want to have happen here is eventually, and this is just kind of thinking ahead, is have him go to a coordinate. So the nice thing here is when you go into motion, see the go to a certain point. The nice thing is if you grab your Flappy Bird and you move him to where you want his start to be, let's say it's here. The nice thing is that becomes, see it says go to x negative 222.7. That's that exact coordinate. So if you don't want to have to type in a coordinate, but you want it to be in your controls, you can move it wherever you want to. So later on at some point in time, what I will do is actually include this. In fact, I'm going to do, I don't want the glide, I just want the go to. I'm actually going to place that here to start with, because what I want is no matter when I want to start my game out, if I hit my green flag, boom, he's going to go to that spot and he's going to start looking like he's flying. Okay? So the next thing I want to deal with is kind of his motion. So I want to make it so he's moving forward as well as that I can move him up and down. And we've done that previously, so I'd like you to challenge yourself to try that on your own. And it says here in the challenges as well that you can, I'm not going to show it, but if you would like to, you can challenge yourself to make the movement more realistic and similar to Flappy Bird, where when you press the up arrow, he kind of jumps and then starts coming down, or even you can make it the space bar. If you've ever played Flappy Bird when you're younger, you kind of remember that, right? He goes up and then down. I'm not going to make it, just says here, you can make it so that the user can make the sprite go up or down by pressing the arrow keys, okay? And that's what I'm going to do. So lots of ways to do that. Again, pause the video, try it on your own. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to make it so first of all he moves forward forever. We've done that previously. I'm actually going to just put that in another script. You could place it in here if you'd like to, but I'm just going to have when this is clicked that he is going to, his motion is going to be first of all forever. Moving. If I had it 10 steps, I think he's going to go a little bit too quickly. That's pretty quick. Okay, so I'm going to have him forever for now, maybe moving 2 steps. Let's see how realistic that is. That's not bad. Okay, now what you're noticing is I can't move him up or down because I haven't created that script, and if he touches the pipes, he's not going back to the beginning. Okay, so we're going to deal with that next. So what you can do is with your movement, we can use, I'm just going to use the Y, changing the Y coordinates. So we did that previously. You know that changing Y by a positive number will move up and by a negative number will move down. So we could make events so that when you press, let's say the up arrow, he changes Y by 10. And you can assume the other thing as well is when you press the down arrow, that what would you change Y by? There's other ways to do this. Again, I'm just showing you one of tons of ways. Okay. All right. So what you can see now if I play my game is if I press up, Flappy Bird goes up. If I press down, Flappy Bird goes down, and then he just hits the end. Okay. So I'm getting closer. If I press the green flag, he starts at the beginning, he's moving forward, I can move him up and down, and the last thing you want to do is make it so if he hits the green pipe, he goes back to the beginning. Okay, and here's where I'd like you to play a little bit, but the idea here, I'm just going to kind of give you some of the idea before you can pause the video, please, is you're going to have an if-then, and you're going to use the next thing quite frequently. You're going to have him sensing a color. That's probably the easiest way. So kind of the idea is this will also have to be in a forever loop, and you can try and figure that out on your own as well. But we want it to be if he senses, if he touches a certain color, right, and it'll be the color of the pipe. If he touches the color of the pipe, then he goes back to the beginning. Okay, so if you want to pause the video, that would be awesome for you to try it. But the idea here is you want it so that if he touches the color of the pipe, and if you click on the color, you can actually, there's actually an eyedropper here, that he'll go back to the beginning. Okay, I'm going to accomplish that right now. And I can put this anywhere as long as it's in a forever. We could also have it in its own script if you want it to be. Okay, so maybe I'll place it in its own script. So when this is clicked, when the green light is clicked, in a forever loop, so it'll be checking forever. If you're touching the color, I'm going to use the eyedropper to get an exact color. So this exact color green right here, you could even do the outside of the pipe if you'd rather. I'm going to do just the inside color. So if you're touching that color, then what we're going to do is have him, just going to detach this for a second. Need to duplicate this guy here. So there's two of them. I want him to go back to that same beginning point. So I should have a working Flappy Bird now. There's a lot of things that aren't, compared to the game, aren't very realistic here, but let's see if it works. Okay, so first of all, he moves forward. I can move him up and down. And check it out. If he hits the pipe in any way, shape, or form, he goes back to the beginning. Okay, this is the simplest version of Flappy Bird that I can come up with. Okay, now another challenge that I have for you, if you'd like to, is make a game over screen. And that would be kind of fun for you. So you can make another background that's a game over screen, and it says you could have a you win backdrop if the player makes it through the pipes. So a couple things regarding that I'm not going to specifically program, but what you could have happen is on your background have a specific color. So let's say on your backdrop, I know it's not perfect, but on your backdrop here, if you wanted to, you could have a very, very thin box at the end. You can make it thinner than this, but have it a very specific color. Doesn't matter what color. Okay, you can make it whatever color you want to, but you kind of make it so that when your Flappy Bird hits that box, that it changes to a new backdrop that says you win. Another thing you're going to have to kind of be aware of if you want to go this route is there's also controls here called hide and show. Yeah, so right here, if you go to the sprite at the end of the game, if you want to make your sprite disappear, there's something here called hide. So maybe if you hit that ending, you can hide him, but then you're going to want to make sure that before your game starts, you show him again. Okay, so there's hide and show, and that's under the looks there. So have some fun with this. Pause frequently. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a little bit challenging, and when you're done, you can hand in the link.